As we move along, we'll tell you more about Cane Hill. Some people, you know, when we first started this, I didn't know much about Cane Hill at all. But we're going to start off with a little kind of a very appropriate song that I think kind of makes me think of the image you're looking at up there. That's what Cane Hill looked like about the turn of the century, about 1900. And
yeah, that was actually a painting by Benita Leach Sparks. And it depicts Cane Hill back then, but I love the fountain in the middle of the square.
Yeah, the fountain in the middle of the square. And you know what Donna did for the first song is she thought about that little boy in that picture. And he's standing on a remnant of the old fountain as it's kind of falling apart there. But thinking about that little boy maybe getting out of school and running over to the downtown area of Cane Hill and going from merchant to merchant, and then, you know, just seeing all the people that work there, and it's kind of a nice little introduction to Cane Hill. It's called Cane Hill, Main Street at Cane Hill. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh boy, here we go. It works pretty good in our living room. You know? Here we go. Running on down to the Mercantile as the sun was coming up. If I swept the front porch clean, I'd get me a soda pop.
Sometimes I'd get a peppermint or a salty pretzel stick, a pickle from a barrel or a puff licorice.
And then I'd visit old Doc Beanie, get his stethoscope. Let me hear his heart beat steady and slow. Then he'd ask about my ma and how we was doing. Never ask about my grades, 'cause I did not like schooling. My next stop was a cooperage while I watched them bend them staves. Nothing but the finest stroke, clear, straight, and age. Sturdy apple barrels all lined up in a row. I dreamed that I might work there one day when I was grown. They'd mostly find me barefoot, but today I wore my boots. I was mighty proud of them, they're made by Mr. Tool.
And his finest leather cowboy boots were shipped way out west.
He said that mine were seconds, but to me they were the best. Sometimes this world seems like rusted tin, but on Main Street, Cane Hill, life was golden. That blacksmith was the biggest man that I had ever seen. Swinging that old hammer, boys, he'd make that anvil ring. But his shop was hot as blazes, and I would not stay there long. My next stop was a loafer's bench, I'd wave and move along. That's where the old men gathered, and I'd stop and sit and spell. They taught me spitting and whittling, I learned their stories well. And it felt so good just being there, a sitting at their feet. Hard for me to come up with a memory that's sweet. Sometimes this world seemed like rusted tin, but on Main Street, Cane Hill, life was golden. Golden as the double eagle coin in father's pocket, golden as the chain that holds my mom's locket, golden as the morning sun shining across the land. You can't measure these treasures, hold them in your hand. Sometimes this world seemed like rusted tin, but on Main Street, Cane Hill, life was golden. My day would likely wind up at the fountain on the square. That cool, clear water brought folks from everywhere.
Sometimes I'd plug the pipe up
When no one was aware, an enormous stream of water would spew into the air. I think I knew every soul in that little town. Sometimes this world seemed like rusted tin, but on Main Street, Cane Hill, life was golden, golden.
So in the past, when I've done my quilts, you know, you saw that I would always throw them on the floor, but I was kind of told that that's not good etiquette to throw your clothes on the floor. So we have Grant here.
Yes, when you were at the Walton Arts Center.
This is Grant.
As Patricia Ralph always tells us, they're artifacts.
Artifacts, yes.
They're artifacts. You know, right? Actually, this is Donna, first course, Donna made a quilt for every one of these songs, and they're just wonderful. It's part of kind of a tradition now. We got so many quilts in our house. We could do the whole
Here, Grant.
floor. No, you're gonna hang that up?
No, this one doesn't have a belt on it.
Okay. All right. IT failure on my part.
IT failure on your part.
Right.
This one.
So, but actually this time,
Well, talk about the college.
they asked Donna to make a double set of quilts because they're gonna hang up. She made them an extra quilt, and they're gonna permanently hang up a set of these at Cane Hill, either in the college or the museum. We don't know exactly which. Yeah. So that was a lot of work. So, but you just saw a picture of the college as it looks now. That is the college all restored perfectly. But that took a long time to happen. This building started in the 1850s as a wood structure. It burned down. Then during the Civil War, it was built again. It burned down again. It was built again as a brick structure in the 1880s. Then it was really on the verge of falling apart until the Cane Hill Historical Group came together about 4 or 5 years ago and have got this thing looking like that. It's perfectly stable. It's a beautiful building. And of course we needed a song about that.
But I didn't want to just write a song with a bunch of facts about the college, little dry facts. But this photo is actually a painting that hangs in the museum by Molly Mock. And I found this little brochure in the museum, and it's a scholastic catalog from 1876. And in it says the 3 Mock sisters were some of the first women to ever go to school there. Because that college, that Cane Hill College, was the first college in Arkansas that allowed women to attend. And so this one,
Yep.
go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to, one little side, I will be talking about our instruments here and there when it seems necessary. The thing that's special about this instrument, I've never played it before tonight. This is actually Crow Johnson's old banjo. So you've probably heard it before.
And it's a long neck. It's got extra,
And, she's not doing any music. She's doing other stuff, though. I hope you all know she's fine. She's writing and she's painting, and nothing stops her. But she's not playing music, and she wanted me to have this, so I'm going to give it a shot. It's kind of it's a long neck banjo. If you haven't noticed, I had to duct tape an extra couple.
But this song is actually, it's more about sibling rivalry than anything. It's called Molly's Song.
2, 3,
4. We grew up in Prairie Grove, my 2 sisters and I. My name is Molly, I love to draw. Sister Callie sure can sing. Lovely Mary, Sister Mary, she could do anything. In the year of 1875, we were sent to Cane Hill Town. Mama said the college opened up its doors. Women were finally allowed. Papa said, Mary, pretty Mary, someday she'll make us proud. We learned arithmetic, astronomy, natural philosophy, rhetoric, chemistry, botany, and biology.
listen to me. All the honor and the glory went to Mary and Callie. You'll see that it kind of goes back and forth. Some of the songs are pretty factual, including the next one. And some of them are she just kind of like a little novel or a novelette of sorts. But you know, there's a lot of Cane Hill, you know, just to back up a little bit. Cane Hill, in case you don't know, there might be a few of you who don't know where it is. If you go out the road if you go past Prairie Grove, and then you're getting close to Lincoln, and then you would go south on 49, and it would just be 2 or 3 miles south on 49. So it's really very close to Lincoln. It's south of there. And at one time, Cane Hill, in the late 1800s, Cane Hill looked like it was going to be the cultural center of Northwest Arkansas. And that things changed. You know, the railroad didn't service it, and it started to wither away slowly for a lot of reasons. But the Civil War had a huge impact on Cane Hill. And so there's a couple songs that relate to that, including this one. This is a sad story. It's kind of a dark story, but it's an important story to the folks that live there. The Battle of Prairie Grove, which was very close to that area, was of course the Union troops were victorious, and in their victorious mood, they were very celebratory, and they rode on down to Cane Hill and basically, you know, started burning homes and causing a lot of they burned the college. And it's kind of the chaos of war. I guess that this song is really about the chaos of war. There's a lot of people that were in the wrong here. Somebody in Cane Hill started taking pot shots at the soldiers, the Union soldiers. Of course, the commander was furious, trying to figure out who had shot at them, and he decided that he was going to make somebody pay. There were no soldiers in town, so no Confederate soldiers, so they just chose 3 elderly men and decided they were going to hang him.
Made scapegoats out of
from an oak tree that hangs in Cane Hill.
Now this tree, Kelly took the photo. This is a huge bur oak that's in Cane Hill. Now no one really knows which tree is the hanging tree. Nobody has any idea. But we imagine that this tree is the hanging tree. That's me there. You can see how big that tree is. So we're going to use our imagination that this is the tree that's in the song.
That's true. And as much wrongdoing as there is in this story, there is one kind of a hero, and it happens to be a young teenager.
She's a shero.
Yeah, she's a shero. And her name is Lou Lucy. Lou Lucy. It's a real person that actually exists.
So this is called the Cane Hill Hanging.
All right, here we go. They marched into Cane Hill after the battle. their muskets held high, but cheering and shouting like braggadocious schoolboys. Before the fall comes the pride, and someone was hiding up on the top, and no one ever knew who fired those pot shots. But those bullets brought some blue coats down, and a scapegoat must be found, and there would be a hanging in Cane Hill town. The only ones in town were the old men and children, too young, too old to fight in that old war. And the three men they chose, they were guilty of nothing but that, according to Cane Hill law. The commander tied a rope to a branch way up high, and three men would pay with their lives. He declared to the crowd gathered round, no man was to cut them down. Was his command to Cane Hill town. Could hardly see, the gallows would be the old oak tree. They crept to the place where the hanging tree stood, and with a silent prayer they cut the bodies down. For they were seen no soldiers around. With tears upon their face, they dug 3 shallow graves. Lou Lacey, she was young and she was see the tears were falling from that old oak tree. There's unmarked gravestones in Cane Hill's graveyard. Just might be those men, no one knows their name, and no one seems to know if that oak is still standing. But there's one that oak's still living there today. And as I stand beneath her arms, she seems ever silent, mournful of those deeds so senseless and violent. And her teardrops still fall down through the leaves and to the ground, where those 3 men were hung in Cane Hill town. Where the moon was so black you could hardly see, the gallows would be the old oak tree.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, he's good. He's good.
Just oh, look at there. And you know, and we're kind of going to stay on the dark side, maybe to get the...
Just one more dark song, and then we'll lighten it up.
These are important stories. We're going to go even further back in time. Cane Hill was also one of the earliest settlements in this neck of the woods. I guess, in fact, somebody told me the day that his ancestors, yesterday, we were down at Cane Hill, and he told me his ancestors were kind of move-ins. They didn't get to Cane Hill until 1930, because there were people there in 1928. So, important designation there.
And
but not long after that, 1938, was the trailer, when the Trail of Tears actually came through Cane Hill.
Mm-hmm. And I found a beautiful story. You all know Susan Young from the Shiloh Museum of Ozark History in Springdale. It's an amazing museum. If you haven't been there, you need to go there. It's amazing. And Susan Young wrote this really touching story that just tore my heart out called Finding Elsie Timberlake. And it's a story of a Cherokee family that came from Tennessee and marched all the way through Cane Hill, and their daughter Elsie Timberlake, she was only 13, and she died somewhere near Cane Hill. They don't know exactly where she's buried, but they have the receipt for her coffin. Now this photograph is not Elsie Timberlake. The curator at the Museum of Cane Hill gave me a photo of a young Cherokee girl that walked the Trail of Tears, probably about that age. But I took Susan Young's song, and I'm gonna play a different fiddle on this. Because this fiddle was I traded this for a song. Elliott Smith is an instrument maker in Jasper, Arkansas, and he made this replica of a hardanger, Norwegian hardanger fiddle with the lion's head. It's got 8 strings and 4 run sympathetically under the fingerboard. But I just love this. This has got a dark tone. I'm gonna play on this.
Really appropriate. By the way, I just remembered, actually Tuesday is Indigenous Peoples Day here, and there is actually on the university there's always a walk. It starts at I think at the Union, and then walks over to that Trail of the Tears monument. Yeah. You can find the details on the Omni website, I bet.
Cool.
So just on Tuesday. We're going to be here playing for school kids. They're going to bus kids, and we're going to do a version for young folks. So here we go with that.
Finding Elsie Timberlake.
1, 2, 3.
On a grave in front of me in the wind-blown Carnahan Cemetery. The lonesome breeze wished me back in time. 1837, Lord, it felt like crying. I could see a family living in fear on the Trail of Tears. The Timberlakes, they were Cherokee, forced to travel west from Tennessee, across Kentucky and through Illinois. They'd already buried their youngest boy. Nothing to eat but fodder and corn. Winter had arrived, and with its chill, daughter Elsie taken ill. An old receipt had been found, said her coffin was purchased near Cane Hill town. She had only lived but 13 years when her young soul left the Trail of Tears. The tragic deeds of yesterday left unmarked stones along the way. Shallow graves beside the road, countless stories left untold. Then a sudden autumn breeze showered me with bright red leaves. I'm thinking that I heard her whispering, and I found myself down on my knees. So I picked up a perfect leaf, put it in my pocket for to keep. I'll press it in a book to remain a reminder of Elsie Timberlake's name.
Thank you very, very much. Well, we are going to lighten it up now, and this one is fun. This is one of my favorites. There's everybody in Cane Hill. You know, one thing I love about this community, the board of Historic Cane Hill that asked us to do this in the first place, they really seduced us very quickly with their passion for their own roots. You know, these people that are on the board, almost all of the board members grew up there, and their parents grew up there. They have really deep roots in this area, and they just can't wait to have their story preserved, and so that's how all this happened. A lot of them have firsthand knowledge of Doc Bean. This is the town doctor who lived, I believe, up into the 1950s, but this story really takes place before that, when probably in the 1920s or so. And it's really not as much, you know, he was a wonderful man, but this story is really about a man named Joseph Stevens, who was his sidekick, a little boy, probably 10-year-old boy, who somehow got to know Dr. Bean and befriended him, and they started hanging out all the time, and pretty soon he was his driver, and they actually assisted him in surgery. Things were a little different back then, you know. But it's a sweet story. It's a true story. This is all very well documented. Anything you want to add?
Well, I do want to add something, because my mother-in-law helped me do all these little background stitches you can see in the back, and it was really, really precious. She sat there and I had to stitch 20 of them like that, so that's pretty good.
We had a little factory going, you know. All right, so here's for Doc Bean. 1, 2.
When I was a kid, my appendix burst. They rushed me off to old Doc Bean. He sent me to the hospital. Said it was the worst case he'd ever seen. Took 3 long years for I was okay. I visit Doc Bean most every day. He always had a special task for me. Seemed to enjoy my company. His every wish was my command. I love being Doc Bean's right-hand man. I recall one day Doc got a call. He had a Model A Ford. At the time I wasn't in school, just loafing around, so I'd ask him if he'd let me drive. He let me take her fast as she'd go, up and down them county roads. And from that day on I drive him around out in the back roads of every town. He laughed every time I stepped on the gas. Driving that car made me feel like a man. Doc had some problems with his hands. He couldn't keep them both from trembling. When a man got shot with a double-barrel gun, we fixed him real good before the day was done. With my steady hands and Doc's watchful eyes, I pulled a dozen pellets from the poor man's hide. Let me say right here, when someone came to the office or someone was in need of help, never would they ask, would he ask, can you pay? Do you have insurance? Never was that a question. You know, it was the Great Depression. Now he just took care of it. Off to war. My dad had a stroke while I was gone. Till he died, I cared for him. He was always there to spell my mom. The finest man I'd ever known. When his old wife died, he was left all alone. I begged him to move out west with me. I would take care of him, keep him company. Nothing ever made me feel so great than for me to be Doc Bean's right-hand man. Doc never did leave them Ozark Hills, and my heart was heavy when I drove away, and I never did see him again, but I thought about him every day. And I hope when I make it to the promised land, that I can be Doc B's right-hand man.
What a sweet story that is. That town is just full of sweet stories. Look at that.
Yeah. In fact,
This is, one of the...
I gotta put my costume on.
Okay, yeah. She's going to put her apple costume on. You see, that is another well-kept secret about Cane Hill. When we think of apples now, we think of Lincoln.
Or Springdale even.
Or Springdale, with Van Zant's up in Springdale, has really been holding down the fort on the apple industry for a long time. But nevertheless, there was a time when Cane Hill was absolutely the center of apple growing in northwest Arkansas. Very important to the community. And so we dug up an interesting tidbit about that. Donna?
Yeah, actually, there's a whole thing afoot in Cane Hill now. The Black Apple Crossing Cidery down in Springdale has planted over 400 heirloom apples, and they're going to be bringing it back and making their apple cider out of Cane Hill apples.
Have you all ever been to the Black Apple Crossing over in Springdale? That's great. It's fun. It's fun. They got all these different flavors of cider.
Yeah, it's awesome. Anyways, I found this little book in the museum, and it's called The Cane Hill Story, 1825 to 1969 by Conroe Miller. And in this, there's a story where Conroe talks about being a young boy and loving to go pick apples in the autumn. And he said his cousin Annie made the best apple butter and the best fried apple pie. So I made Cousin Annie be the star of this song. And this is a waltz, so if anybody feels like swaying, you too.
That's right. 1, 2, 3.
On the ends of the branches, flashing their dresses of red and gold. Apples are blushing just like a new bride. The air's crisp and cool and it's harvesting time. Cousin Annie bakes the best pie. The Wilson June apples with dark crimson stripes. If I pick her a bushel in a peck, she'll give me a hug round my neck. Tell me stories about Cane Hill lore, about battles and bandits in the old Civil War. When it comes to apples, she knows everything. An apple they call Howard Sweet is best picked right off the tree. She rode the Ferris wheel up and down. From the top she could see for miles around. Our Arkansas apples, they took the first place for color, variety, texture, and taste. Every autumn I sure can see why. One bite of Annie's sweet pie. Tomorrow I'll wake up just before dawn, head out to the orchard, my heart filled with song. Gonna help pick them apples all the day long, dreaming of cinnamon and spice, Cousin Annie's sweet pie.
anybody know how many pecks there are in a
Oh,
bushel?
wait, here, two.
Anybody know? 4. Good. Somebody does know.
Ah.
We had to look that up ourselves. We're very pleased that the Walton Arts Center took the opportunity to do 2 days of kids programming, Monday and Tuesday, and so we're going to be doing a shorter version of this show and doing a little story problem. I'm going to make them figure out how many gallons there are in a bushel and a peck. It's going to be tough.
I couldn't do it.
Just for meanness, you know.
Well, I have to show my cool instrument before you tell about the song, because this is so amazing. I found this old violin case at a garage sale, and often when I see these old violin cases, I think maybe there's a cool violin in it, or I just like the cases to turn into other things. But when I opened this up, some old timer had built a mountain dulcimer into the case. So the case itself is the instrument.
It's really sweet.
And
it sounds good. And I had intended to play a classical guitar today, but Donna left it in the dryer.
What?
And so I don't know if it's going to work or not, really. This is a man in Hawaii made this. It's a sweet little thing. But you know, so this is a kind of a complicated and interesting story. There's a lot of issues going on here simultaneously that I had to unravel, and I guess you will too. It happened just in the wake of the Civil War. And the slaves had been freed. Cane Hill was in transition. There was, of course, every town in this area had millers, and this particular town had a miller named J.R. Pyatt. And J.R. Pyatt was a very successful miller. He was making good money. He was worried about his money. You know, in those days, there weren't any banks in Northwest Arkansas considered secure enough to keep your gold. And so he felt like he had to get his money somehow all the way up to Kansas City, which was a long ways by wagon. And so he felt pretty sure if he'd done it himself that he would be robbed on the way. And I guess that's pretty likely. So he got this idea. He had befriended a former slave, a black man named Charlie King. And they became very dear friends, in fact. And he decided to trust his friend, Charlie King, to take the gold up there for him in a disguised way. The song will tell how. Disguised, hidden in the corn in the wagon. And, you know, probably not a really good idea, you know, endangering your friend to that degree. And so that's the part that bothers me, but it's a true story, and these people had to sort this out for themselves.
And I had to do some interesting research, because when we read the story about Charlie King taking the gold up to Kansas City, it always said that he brought freight back. And I was really curious. I thought, what kind of freight would be brought back here to the Ozarks from Kansas City? And come to find out, one of the most popular things was calico fabric. And that's around the edge is calico fabric, because the ladies like calico for their dresses. So this song is called A Yard of Calico.
Pull back the dry corn husk, put golden coins in perfect rows, then lay the husk back down, carefully so nothing shows. I've earned all this wealth you see, running the mill, and I'm terrified to travel north. There's men who earn their keep from robbing men like me. There's a bank in Kansas City where my money will be safe. Take my sturdy wagon and leave at the break of day. Leave at the break of day. But all
so they say. The miller counts the hours, and for his safe return he'll pray. But he never should have risked his life for money in the bank. If Charlie makes it safely home, good Lord, he shall thank.
Last evening at the mill, I was working overtime, while thoughts of my dear friend weighed ever heavy on my mind. I heard my horses whinnying down the old dirt road. At last my wagon came in view, and with a light load, Uncle Charlie King, I thought, I'm glad you made it home. He smiled and showed me leather boots and a yard of calico, lovely calico.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really worked out. All right, so this one, we're going to go over to, there was a school teacher that lived in Cane Hill that caught Donna's eye. And actually there was a artifact, into doing our research for this project. We did several things. We did some oral history with some people that lived around the area. We also read all the pamphlets that had been written that we could find. And also there's a lot of artifacts at the little museum. In fact, one of the first things you want to do if you ever take a Sunday drive over to Cane Hill is go to the little museum. It's just full of interesting stories.
You could have a treasure hunt with a CD. You could just...
Yeah, you could.
And but one of my favorite artifacts in the whole museum is a little metallic shoe. Kelly gave me one for Christmas. But it's a little metallic shoe that looks just like the little metal shoe in the Monopoly game. Y'all remember when they had the little top hats and the little iron and, remember those? Yeah. But the little shoe is always my favorite. And in this little display case, there's the shoe and a picture of Laura Houston, the teacher, and a letter in her handwritten letter, because this shoe was given to her by one of her students years and years before Monopoly was ever invented. So the mystery is, did that shoe inspire Monopoly? And I like to imagine that little boy is the one who gave her the shoe. I have a very vivid imagination.
Yeah. It's all kind of far-fetched, but you got to start somewhere. By the way, I love, this is a good example of what Don did with these quilts. It might not be obvious when you look at it. Every single quilt was a black and white photograph. Okay, so she colorized that with pencils.
With watercolor
Watercolor pencils. I don't know how she did it at the kitchen table, and I still don't know how she did that. It happens so
You
fast.
just take the watercolor and go.
That's about it.
So this is the song for Laura Houston, and I just call this The Charm.
Ready? 1, 2.
Reading and writing and arithmetic. I was quite gentle. I never taught to the whip of a hickory stick. I never traveled over the ocean. I ordered a map of the world. parchment bears my inscription and name. It hangs on a wall in a museum shrouded in mystery. Some claim the shoe inspired a piece for a game called Monopoly. Where that shoe came from, well, I never knew its history. It really doesn't matter, it's irrelevant to me. My country boy had nothing but a little charm to give. To thank me for teaching, a lifetime of teaching was my greatest gift. A child without an education is like a bird without wings. And knowledge without wisdom is a song that never sings. Thank you. Actually, I should have dedicated that to our neighbor Morgan because he was the one who told me to use the shaker on that part.
Yeah, in
Ned
fact,
and Morgan were both our what do you call it?
we have, it's really funny how this has evolved. You know, after we finished recording this album, then we had to figure out how to play all the songs with just
As
two
a duo,
people.
yeah.
You know, and so that's the biggest challenge in this process that we've somehow meandered into. By the way, the process that we've meandered into, this is the 4th time now, is where we're going to do 13 concerts, all for free, all around the region. And so nobody pays to come, the venues don't pay either. And then if we get to give away 100 CDs at each of these venues.
Really cool.
And this is all paid for by Historic Cane Hill. So it's a wonderful situation for a musician. It's pretty easy to book a gig when you don't have to charge
Yeah.
them. You know,
And
and we're going to give you 100 CDs.
yeah. And so
We'll make dinner for you too if you really, you know.
But we want to say that if you have friends that want to come see the show, we'll be doing it at the Shiloh Museum. We'll be opening the Ozark Folk Festival in Eureka Spring at the Odd on Friday night. And you can see it on our website. And I want to give a shout out to Ashley Price because she developed our new Cane Hill website and our website for us. And I know she's out here.
It's a drop down on Still on the Hill website.
Yeah.
So, and that has all the dates.
So speaking of Eureka
All right,
Springs.
so the first musician to play the Eureka Springs Folk Festival, I don't even know how long ago that was, a long time ago. That's one of the oldest festivals in the country. That's Booth Campbell. And Booth Campbell was kind of the town musician of Cane Hill. He's a banjo player, no less. How about that? And he played the fretless banjo. They say that his house was right down in the valley, not far from the college. You could see it from the college. And apparently you could hear it from the college. In fact, everybody says that they could all hear Booth play in the afternoon everywhere in that valley. He'd play out on his porch. And just a real charming man. He also played in Mountain View. And he was also recorded, thankfully, by Mary Parler. And I bet a lot of you have heard the Mary Parler collection. She was a folklorist who was one of the last to take a tape recorder out and capture some of the last of the old timers in the Ozarks.
A song catcher.
Yeah, and luckily a few years ago that whole collection was digitized and now it resides at the University of Arkansas, and it's free. You can hear over 1,000 songs any day of the week without even
really cool.
paying a dime. It's really interesting. In fact, there's over a dozen songs from Booth Campbell that he played when I think he was in his hospital bed or like a nursing home when he played these songs. But so the board really wanted us to represent Booth, and so what we did is we listened to his recordings, and we thought of one song really caught our ear, "Goodbye, My Honey, I'm Gone," just a good old traditional tune that he had made his own. And so we tried our best to do it justice in his style. And
we wanted
I needed to play it on a fretless banjo. That was real important. So I just happened to have
The coolest banjo in the world.
And so, yeah, I'm very, very pleased to have this instrument. This is a banjo like no other. It is fretless. It does have markers made of stone, pipe stone and turquoise, alternating up. It has a deer skin on top. It's made of cedar and all kinds of like Osage orange and hornbeam. It's just a fabulous piece of work. It's kind of like a banjo really would have looked, 125, 30 years ago, more or less when it was closer to its African origins. And one thing sweet about this was made by a person who's become one of our dearest friends. His name is Jim Lee. I think you probably have seen some of us play other instruments by Jim Lee, the ones with the rounded backs that are carved out of a single piece of wood. And I'm very pleased to say that today Jim Lee is right in the front row, right in front of you, right there. There you are. It's a great honor to get to play this in your presence. So yeah, and just for this song has a barnyard verse towards the end, the last verse, and mentions cows and chickens and hogs, and so I have a lifelong fascination with lumberjacks. In fact, I brought this just to show you because I bought this at the War Eagle Fair when I was probably 10 years old, and I still have it. I love this little guy, and I've made quite a few of these over the years. They're easy to make, and so we decided to make.
So he made a cow and a chicken lumberjack, and we're going to have Morgan and his mom Mary come up and help us.
Yay, come on up.
Mary, come over here.
Mary and Morgan over here is going to do the
chicken. So you're going to sit on the paddle. All right.
And I want to tell you, Morgan's actually kind of new to town. He just happened to move in across the street. And we heard him playing guitar, like, why don't you come over? And it turned out he's really, really good. In fact, we backed him up at a gig at Georgia's last in the spring, I guess.
And we've never met Mary. Hi, Mary. Nice to meet you.
I should have rethought my costume.
Now you gotta let it kind of.
Oh.
Don't look. Okay. So it just sits here.
All right.
It's time to
You
play.
know what? You can do it side saddle,
Just do like that.
All right. Perfect.
And then we'll tell you when.
All right.
We'll tell you when, and then you get two opportunities.
Okay.
And then
She's giving all these very fine, one thing, and we just have grown to really love Morgan, and we play music together a lot in the neighborhood. And Nan also lives across the street, Nan Yarnell.
She's the one who helped give the CDs out.
And these two people, I don't know how, somehow or another these two they are like our musical advisory council. And because Donna and I are always, knocking through these things in our living room, and they're over at the house a lot.
Well, I think you should, maybe if you just.
So they have both had a lot of input in what we're doing. It's really fun to see that all unfold. So, are you guys ready? You think you realize you won't be playing right away?
I will follow your lead.
Okay, right. You'll know when.
All righty.
All right, here we go. And there'll be a don't you want to get?
Yeah. We can't. This is a barnyard song, and we need your help. So to start this off, we're going to have a collective rooster crow on the count of 3. Now, when Kelly and I tell people this, when we play this in Switzerland, they go kikiridi.
We that won't work here.
And that that's German. That's how roosters speak in German. So we need an American rooster crow on the count of 3. Okay, you ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Sounding of the horn and the beating of the drum. No use to be grieving, I'm gonna be leaving. Goodbye, my honey, I'm gone. It's gone. Farewell, my baby, I'm gone. Well,
Kisses are sweeter, more sweeter than wine.
but come an early frost and the winter on mine. I know I'll feel better come the sunny weather. Goodbye, my honey, I'm gone. It's gone. Farewell, my baby, I'm gone.
Okay, dancers!
Keep going. They'll get one more chance here. First, we got the barnyard stuff. I got pigs, cows tied up late last fall.
I can do a donkey.
Anything else?
Yeah, I can do birds.
Did you happen to know we were playing a song? Like,
Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
you can do a woodpecker too, can't
Oh,
you?
yeah. Okay.
Now I'm going to the ball while the ghost chewed tobacco, duck drank wine, old hen cackled and the goose chirped bedtime. Blah, 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 baby, I'm gone. Oh, farewell, my baby, I'm gone. No use to be grieving, I'm gonna be leaving. Goodbye, my honey, I'm gone. It's gone. Farewell, my baby, I'm gone. Here we
Okay, here we
go.
go. Clap along, y'all.
There we go.
That was fun.
Clean up all the wreckage here.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
All right, so.
Oh my. We're having too much fun.
You know, I bet a lot of you folks in this town has seen Phil and Allison do their Orphan Train show before.
Oh, yes.
Well, I figured that was the case. And, you know, and they have done a lot to make the Orphan Train story, people more aware of that story. The Orphan Train episode of American history is one of the best kept secrets, at least it used to be. You wouldn't learn about it growing up. I guess everybody seemed to be ashamed of this at one time, but there's certainly no reason for that. And in recent years, it has emerged as a very interesting story. What it is in the 1850s, it started, and it lasted all the way into the 1920s. And the immigrants were flooding into Ellis Island, and as they came in, it was a very difficult transition in those days. And a lot of children got separated from their parents for many different reasons. And somehow there was a huge excess of orphans and kids with had no parents, had either died or had lost them. And so an organization came together called the Children's Aid Organization. And they organized train loads of kids to go across the country and deliver them to families all across the Midwest and the South. And some of these folks ended up in this area, and there's one in particular that ended up in Cane Hill. Still has a lot of family in Cane Hill. In fact, one of the board directors of Cane Hill Historic Society is
L.G. Brawley.
This
Bobby Brawley. This is L.G. Brawley. He's one of the Orphan Train riders, the little boy in the middle with the overalls on. And I love the way that woman's kind of like boxing his ear. I don't know what he did, but that's a cute picture.
She's pulling on his ear.
She's just pulling on his ear, yeah.
So this is a true story. We actually we got to interview a lady named Mary Ellen Johnson.
Mm-hmm. She is the executive director of the Orphan Train Historical Society of America, and she helped Phil and Allison with their Orphan Train, and we got to spend 2 hours talking to her about L.G. Brawley before we wrote this song. So.
1, 2, 3. Oh, by the way, this is Donna's debut as a banjo player.
And this banjo is actually from our good friend Aaron Smith gave me this. This is from 1890.
It's an old, it's an English banjo. Who would know they had banjos in England? 1, 2, 3. Sister Madeline, Barbara, and Elizabeth told us not to cry at the orphanage. They said that our mama would be back one day.
clothes and 3 meals a day. But at night I pray, praying for a home, longing for a home of my own. I will never forget that fateful day when they chose us to ride on the orphan train far to a place called Arkansas. They dressed us boys up in navy suits. Our sisters wore dresses of white and blue. 4 long days, clickety-clack, rolling down the railroad track. No tears left, no looking back, no looking back. Hoping for a home, longing for a home of my own. When we finally arrived at the Fayetteville station, there were swarms of folks in buggies and wagons. My sister and my brother were taken away, and I still held tightly to my faith, dreaming of the lovely pearly gates where we should meet again one day. Mr. Finley took me in and I went to school. I had a big old dog that I rode like a mule, but his wife couldn't ride, so they passed me on to a man up in Fayetteville who ran a music store. When he died, his wife didn't want me no more. They sent me off to Lincoln on a passenger train. Mr. Bobby took me in, folks called him Frank. I counted my blessings every day, and at night I pray, grateful for this home. I'm grateful for this home of my own. Well, I had to walk 3 miles to school, and the orphanage folks said that this was true. They threatened to take me away, so I grabbed my own dog and I hid in the woods. They wouldn't come looking even if they could, 'cause Mr. Riley got a lawyer and adopted me. I sang his praises joyfully. Now at night when I kneel to pray, I can finally say, finally found a home, finally found a home of my own. Algie Bradley wasn't my birth name, but I wore it proudly till my dying day, till my dying day.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We have two more songs.
2 more songs. You know, if you visit, how many of y'all have been to Cane Hill before? See? All right, so a pretty good number have been. So you've seen the college. The college is kind of the first thing you notice when you go to Cane Hill. But there's actually, there must be 7 or 8 different buildings that are involved with restoration. And then there's the museum. They just got hold of, they finally got the church, that beautiful church, stone church, right close to the highway. They have a big plan. They're just they've only been around for a little over 4 years. So the society, they call it themselves Historic Cane Hill. They've got a lot of work to do. They have a 10-year plan. And we're just a little piece of that puzzle. You know, our job basically is to encourage you guys to check it out and be aware of what they're doing. The college is right next to the college. There's a belfry, And there's a bell in that belfry, and it's a really special bell. There's a lot of bells around, but maybe that all of them have a story. But we looked in. This one had a well-documented story that was kind of surprising. Like you would never guess that this bell that was in Cane Hill had started off. It used to be part of a riverboat that was working back and forth the Arkansas River.
Yeah, and actually there's part of the story that we found out. I wrote it from the bell's perspective, so the bell's going to tell you its life story. But we even left some of it out because the Cane Hill folks, after we recorded it, they said, oh yeah, but did you know that back in the 60s or something, some college kids stole the bell? And I didn't put that in the song, so. But this is the bell tower that's there, and you can actually ring the bell if you go there. Last night we played we kind of did a secret concert in the college at Cane Hill, and right when we played the song, somebody went out and rang the bell. For us, it was so cool. And I have a little bell that I'm going to ring at the end, and you can use your imagination. But on the recording that you all have, we went and recorded the actual bell from the bell tower.
That's true. It's one thing really fun about this collection is that we have already found out. Excuse me. We've already found there's a. Oh, she's pushing me aside. Look at that. Nobody needs to hear the banjo anyway. We've noticed there's a lot of people, living relatives of people that we've written about here. We keep on bumping into more and more. Are you okay?
I think.
I don't want to crowd you. All right, you ready?
Ready.
1, 2. Thank you all. Thank you very, very much. And you know, they'll let you ring that bell if you go on the little tour over there. If somebody's over there it may even be unlocked. I'm not sure, but it's fun. I love ringing that bell. We are got one more song for you folks.
Oh my goodness.
And you know, we are so pleased that you came today. You know, I wanted to say a couple things about why I think that these stories are important, and important to preserve these stories. And it really, you know, when it comes down to it, there's a lot of reasons, but the one that I think that most affects me is it has to do with community. And you know, when we live here in Fayetteville, I believe we're a little spoiled.
Yeah.
You know, because we do know what community feels like here. And I hope we don't take that for granted, because it could disappear. And it is, I think, in general, I think it is something that is disappearing in our country as we become homogenized, as we become more and more enamored with technology and travel and
Box
all the
stores.
things that go with that. And it turns, you know, community for some folks is really just maybe a circle of friends that they work with or something. You know, we're becoming detached. You could argue that point, but it feels like it to me. And when you see and you hear stories about a town like Cane Hill, which is a lot like almost any town in this region, it reminds you of what community looked like at one time. And it kind of, for me, it makes me long for that time, to feel nostalgic for, maybe to hold on to some of those things and kind of figure out how to make that part of our lives again, not let it slip away. Does that sound reasonable? I know that in Fayetteville, like I say, we do have it better than in most parts of the country, because this is a wonderful town. It's my hometown. And so we're, you know, as you know, we were thinking about this last song, which is about a potter that made pottery in Cane Hill, J.D. Wilbur. And we were thinking about that and thinking, you know, when an archaeologist goes and looks at an old culture, an ancient culture, and they go digging for artifacts, you know, they're lucky if they find bones, and maybe once in a while they find a stone tool, but what they're really more likely to find is ceramics, pottery. You know, pottery is one of the most durable things that humans have figured out how to do. And so a lot of times pottery has to tell the story. Maybe the pottery holds the story of that culture. And so we kind of, in our minds, we like to think of that about Cane Hill. This pot that you're looking at now actually sits in the museum. Funny, it says Boonesboro, Arkansas on there. Cane Hill for its first 80 years, went back and forth between Cane Hill and Boonesboro.
I think they had 5 different names during that time.
Just rocked back and forth. Finally, they arrived at Cane Hill.
But Cane Hill also had the finest clay for making pottery. And so J.D. Wilbur was from Ohio, and he came down and actually built a factory.
That's true. And he was there for many years, and somehow or another this wound up to be the song that seemed like the way to end this project. So we're going to do that. And at the very end, hopefully we'll get your help for a grand finale. And that should be nice. And I just want to thank you know, the Walton Arts Center for making this available to us. And it would have looked a sweet thing. Get spoiled around here real quick.
And all the crew, the sound,
the crew, the sound crew. They run a tight ship around here, and they do a great job, and I'm thankful for them. So, anything else you want to add before we have to say goodbye? Thank you, folks, for being
love
here.
Our community.
Oh yeah, I know one last thing. If you didn't get a CD, make sure you get a CD, because there's probably, I assume, Nan, we still have a few left over? Okay, good. All right, here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. When the Civil War ended, Cane Hill began to grow. J.D. Wilbur and his wife moved from Ohio. He was thin as a rail, she was plump and round, and they say that she weighed about 300 pounds. They had come down south, he just had to see the perfect clay for making pottery. So he dug that
potter of Cane Hill town. So he built a potter's wheel in a couple of days, and a brick kiln to fire all the vessels he made. The wheel of time spins round and round like the potter's wheel of Cane Hill town. Vessels cast in earth and clay hold the stories of yesterday. With a turnstile post from an old sorghum press, his contraption was pulled by his old mule Bess. Round and round and round, old Bessie would walk till that good hard clay was smooth and soft. Mixing bowls, canning jars, jars for jam, anything and everything to put things in, with the watchful eye for what town folks use. And I wonder if there's some that got filled up with booze, and the kids love to watch as the wheel turns round. Mr. River was a potter of Cane Hill town. The wheel of time spins round and round like the potter's wheel of Cane Hill town. Vessels cast in earth and clay hold the stories of yesterday. Now the wheel spins fast, and gone are the days when the town needs a man building jars of clay. But as time goes on, just wait and see. They will outlast you, they will outlast me. There are pieces of his kin that can still be found in a farmer's field near Cane Hill town, and a handful of pots bearing Wilbur's name sit on shelves of the muse, and they're all that remains. He was laid to rest in the cold hard ground of that good red clay of Cane Hill town. The wheel of time spins round and round like the potter's wheel of Cane Hill town.